Mrs. Dunham, I'm very happy that you agreed to participate in our first oral history project at Jackson State College. I understand that you're a retired teacher from Alcorn College, so could you just tell us about, give us your full name and all, and tell us just
Well,
some
I have
things
a
about
very
yourself.
long name. My name is Melerson Guy Dunham. I was a guy so long, I feel that if I leave it out, a part of me is left out. I've only been married about 30 years, and I'm 70, which means that
Yes,
most of
ma'am.
my life I was not married.
Mhm.
I grew up. Is this essentially what you want?
Yes,
I
ma'am.
grew up in Walthall County. Was educated in the public schools there, and I came to Prentice for some of my uh, high school work. I eventually earned my degree, shall I say, baccalaureate degree at Rust College. My master's is from Indiana University at Bloomington, and I've studied at uh, Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh, and of course a prestigious school in my little book, Tulane University
Yes.
in New
New
Orleans.
Orleans.
Yes, well, I taught 53 years before I came to Prentice, which means most of my life have been spent in the schoolroom, and most of it have been in history. Well, now that's enough about me. I'm delighted that you that you are doing this project.
Mhm.
As I told you earlier, if we are not careful as we move into this period, this full integration of the public schools, we will lose a lot that of our heritage that is just simply we neglected it enough ourselves, and then when we move out there, it will just be gone from us.
Be gone. That's
Hmm.
very true. That's one of the significance of this type of project, although we want to have our institutions around, as well as the history of these institutions,
Yes.
because they are important for our very survival and
Hmm.
knowing who we are. Now, Mrs. Dunham, you work here at Prentice as a librarian as well as a teacher.
Yes, community development, a kind of in plain English, I guess, a kind of a jack of all trades.
Well, it's nice to have those types of persons around an institution
Mhm.
who can do many types of things. You were telling me about a community project that you're working on. Could you describe that for us?
This is basically for black women. Certainly, there's no, there's not a clause that says Chicanos or what have you may not participate, but it is basically for black women. There is a dire need for us to move into this 20th century. So many of us are presidents of or any type of organization, and we're just not familiar with plain parliamentary procedures. And there's so many of us that really do not know about our own selves, and there are those of us who thought that to begin kind of institute where we could train women, and where and above all that we would have information here if one wanted to make use of it, and that is my main task here. I prefer that over calling myself teaching.
Yes, ma'am. Now, all of these things that you are presently involved in are very significant. Um, this institute that you sponsored last year, this is the beginning of the community
Yes,
work that you're doing now. This year.
yes, we hope to have in September of this year. Even we want to have a voter registration primarily for women.
Mhm.
That's kind of unheard of, but that's basically, this, people look out for youth. They look out for the aged, particularly men. I do not mean that I'm a woman lived in its truest form, but then I'm one of those persons who think that something must be terrible not to have any good part, and so the woman's
Right.
lived has something good in
Yes,
it.
ma'am. That is
Hmm.
true. Now, let's go back a little bit since we're talking about women, and perhaps talk about the women that were important in the three private institutions in the state of Mississippi for black people, that is Prentice Institute and Utica and Piney Woods.
Oh, I see. You're primarily interested in the junior colleges that are in this, shall we say, this neck of the woods, for the want of a better word. And well, I can truthfully say that this Prentice Institute and Piney Woods, they have the women there, the black women, have been outstanding. Particularly Mrs. Bertha LaBranch Johnson at Prentice Institute. She is a co-founder, as you would know, of this institution. She and her husband certainly founded Oak Park. At that time was a rare thing because there were just 2 or 3 high schools for Negroes in the whole state. And then Mrs. Grace Jones up at Piney Woods, who is really not necessarily the founder of the Federation, Mississippi State Federation of Colored Women's Clubs, which is the oldest organization for women in the state of Mississippi. And I can truthfully say it's the oldest organization for Negro women in America because it was organized in 1893. And the Mississippi Federation was organized in 1903. We will be celebrating our 70th anniversary this year. And Miss Grace Jones she was one of the persons who really gave foundation to it. It was during her presidency that we started the project that ended in the training school down at Oakley. And she was a true lady in every aspect, and she thought that the women should be doing something. Our motto is lifting as we climb, and she felt that that was one of the things that Negro women could well do, was to assist these, because at that time it was unheard of that you would have an institution for delinquent black boys and black girls. There was one for the dear white children, but for us that did not happen. There was nothing on the books, we were told. Mrs. Bertha LaBranch Johnson has said this. There was nothing on the books to prevent you sending a black kid to this white, but you couldn't find the judge in the state of Mississippi that would commit him there, and you know why. So one was established for us, and it did not come into being really until 1940 under Paul Johnson Sr., but Mrs. Jones planted the seed. Mrs. Bertha LaBranch Johnson carried forward. I believe that Utica there was never a strong following for the Federation, but the Farmers Club, the Farmers, has been always strong around Utica. But I do not. But these are outstanding black women at in these junior colleges. These 2 women in particular. I remember another very strong club woman, Mrs. Rachel Godbolt, who has gone on, but who was a member of a club here at Prentice, Eureka Art, and worked very, very much. There's 2, 3 women, Mrs. Albert and Mrs. Dishman. These are women at Piney Wood who really saw to it that the club moved on. I think I'm correct, that the Federation has convened at Piney Woods at least 3 times in these 70 years. I believe we've been here only once, but it has met. Piney Woods has really been a prop for the Federation in many ways. And Mr. Jones still supports it any way he can, and he extends an invitation all the time to come to Piney Woods, and the red carpet is really spread out when we go.
Well, that's good. I'm sure that's done because of the association that Mrs. Jones
Yes.
has
Sure.
with the Federation.
She was a real leader among women. She was head and shoulders above the average black woman in training, intellect, what have you.
Yes, and I often hear people talk about the way she would go out of her way to go out into the country or out away, let's say away from Piney Woods to help the
Mhm.
people.
Always.
And her mother's clubs that she had for the community women there speaks highly of her interest in everybody's problems at that time. Do you recall anything about her contribution or assistance in the administration of Piney Woods School?
I do not. Once it's been many, many years ago, as you would know, I wrote to Piney Woods for admittance, and she answered my letter. It turned out that when I said I was not accepted, maybe it was not Piney Woods' fault that I was not accepted. It was my fault that I was not accepted because I was just not ready at that time. But that's the only direct association I had with her as it relates to the school. But we corresponded a whole summer.
Yes, ma'am.
Trying to get me.
You there. Where did you finally go to high school?
I finally finished high school at home, but it was a long time in process in finishing it. I didn't just go straight through. The truth is, I started teaching before I finished high school.
I see.
In normals and what have you. Eventually, I ended up in must have been in the very early 30s. There was a high school established at home, and I really finished there. It was such finishing as it was because you just took education. You go to the normals and you take education. And no matter what happened, I took a course in history or geography wherever they was available. Yes.
So you've been primarily a history teacher?
Oh, basically. In the old days, I was principal of the used to have principals, which was a great something to look forward to. She is principal.
Do you recall a lady by the name of Miss Bertha Carter out of Brandon?
Very well. She's a good Methodist.
Yes, that's right. I just wondered.
Yes, incidentally, I'm president of the United Methodist Women in our conference. Yes, I remember Mrs. Carter very well.
She was just principal of the high school, of the grade school that I attended in Brandon. So I just wondered, so you said you were a principal in those days. And you know quite a bit about the development of black education in the state of Mississippi.
Well, I've seen it go. When we think of development, I guess I've been a part of the development. I remember attending school in the one-room old-time one-room school. That was not my first school, but my first school I shall never forget. It was a two-teacher type school, and we were superior to the other schools around us because we had two teachers. And they only had one. And I remember my first experience as a teacher. They paid me a very fabulous salary. They gave me $22.50 a month. But that was, I was one of the better paid teachers.
Better paid teachers.
Yes, because
I guess things really do change.
Yes, and everything changes with that. We developed to better buildings, better prepared teachers, certainly. When I first started, the important thing was to learn how to write, learn how to read, and spell, particularly orally. I'm not so sure we shouldn't do that now when I hear some of the folks.
Yes.
But that was basically, yes. And people like the Dukes family, they were not associated with any of the schools that you're probably interested in, but they have given leadership to black education in Mississippi. And you will hear this all over. Mr. W.W. Blackburn,
Oh, yes.
who was he had the position of executive secretary, but he was a man of many, many, many duties, and all of them had the furtherance of Negro education. And I remember and he was not really employed by the state of Mississippi. He was employed by the Rosenwald Fund. It's been a long time no, you can check me to, if you, especially if you want to document this. I believe Miss Florence Alexander is the first woman, first person that was employed by the state of Mississippi, the first black person. When one time they wanted to hire a person and there was none ready, they said, you know, and a white man, Mr. Strand, got the job. But Mr. Blackman is the first person who really edged it on, and then Miss Ethel, I believe, is the first person who was employed entirely by the state. I think I'm correct. You know, to work in the state office. Her job was supervisor of the gene supervisors, but she supervised everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
It had to do with Negro education. Miss Josie Turner, who was instrumental in supporting Natchez College, is one of the pioneers in Negro education. Mr. Green, who was from Port Gibson. Strange as it may seem, Natchez College and Prentice Institute, Utica Junior College, and Piney Woods, and they were the junior colleges, to be sure, but in the beginning they were high schools, with the exception of Natchez College. But the amazing thing, if you didn't go there, you had to go away from home. Well, that was away from home for many people, to become to receive a high school education. You know, it was not until really the very late 40s, early 40s, shall we say, late 39s and early 40s, when we began to have high schools for Negroes. And then in 50, after 54, they just, heretofore
There
you...
is public high schools for blacks.
Yes.
In the late 30s, well, 30s
Yes.
and 40s, in the 40s.
Yes.
We had,
And then, but you really didn't and then they had school wherever they could.
right.
It might have been a lodge, it might have been a plantation house, it might have been a barn, anything. But after 54, they started building schools. That's why we have our schools are so poorly built now, because they were built in such a hurry.
I recall some of those in our hometown. Yes, ma'am. Now, let's go back and talk specifically about Piney Woods and Prentice. Could you describe for us the circumstances under which you first heard about these two schools, or who won it?
Oh, I first heard about Prentice, from the Johnsons. The Johnsons grew up in Pike County, which is adjacent to my home. And girls from my home used to go to Magnolia. There was a Harper's Baptist College there, supported by a small block of Baptists. And girls went there who could afford it. And Miss Bertha LeBrance Johnson was the matron there. So, and when, they came back talking about Miss Johnson, this lady who was concerned of how you, what you said and the way you said it. And one thing I shall always remember hearing these girls say, she would say that culture is never loud. And then when I came to Prentice, I heard her say, culture is never loud. And of course it took me a long time to... Yes.
Yeah.
Just
I can imagine a student ask, well, what's that?
What is culture? Why culture? Why do I need culture? Excuse me, but she always said that, and one never walks heavily. One steps light, and she stepped light to her dying day. Well, and then with both the schools, singing was, as has always been a part of Negro life, was a part of these schools. And the very first band I ever saw was at Piney Woods.
The first band you ever saw?
The first band I ever saw was at Piney Woods.
Were you there?
Yes, I've been to Piney Woods on many occasions, federations and the days they would have. But the very first band, that's the whole truth, was at Piney Woods. And they used to, were they the Kassenblatten?
Well, they were the Kassenblatten singers, and they had the
There was some
The
sort of
band,
band.
I
Yes,
don't know what the band was called. They
I
never
know,
had
but I
a
remember
rhythm
and a
band.
little Mexican girl used to direct it.
Oh,
And but I first heard of Prentice through the Johnsons, and then the Johnsons were really community people. No matter what you had in the community, anywhere within South Mississippi, there was somebody there from Prentice.
hmm.
If you, just as I would imagine uh, Joneses went north.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the Johnsons went north, but they certainly did not have the following up north that the Joneses had, because the Johnsons were Southerners. It was not until after they had really the school was moving that they could send singers north, and they used to always send singers north. But that's the way I heard of Prentice, was from the Johnsons, and I heard of and the blind boys were at
Piney Woods.
Piney Woods. They
Right.
used to come to our church to sing. Yes, the both of the institutions have really meant much in my little book to black education.
Yes, ma'am.
Or any number of people would never have finished high school, let alone college, if it had not been for Miss Grace Jones and Miss Bertha LaBrance Johnson. In both cases, they were more human than their husbands.
Yes, ma'am. But nevertheless, I'm sure that you would be one of the first to agree that both of these men were really
Outstanding.
outstanding.
No, if
men.
and brainy. J.E. Johnson was a wizard. I certainly know him better than Lawrence C. Jones.
Mhm.
But Jonas Johnson had a philosophy. You worked, you studied, you played, but all in all with one purpose: to make you a better man, a better woman. You just didn't. She told you how to walk. She told you how to talk, but he impressed upon you the necessity of an honest day's work
Mhm.
always.
And it seems like most of both Dr. Jones' philosophy, Professor Hoseklaw and Professor Johnson's philosophy comes right from Booker T. Washington.
Oh, you can understand that.
Mhm.
Mrs. Johnson attended Tuskegee,
Right.
and for a long time, my dear love, you might have heard this before. For a long time, Prentice Institute was a kind of, what shall we say, protege of Tuskegee. Money was sent to Tuskegee to send to Prentice. You know, you didn't just send it directly. You know.
Right.
Did you go to a Catholic high school?
We're just continuing our tape with Mrs. Dunham at Prentice Institute. And before the tape ran out, we were talking about Booker T. Washington's influence on these three private educational institutions in Mississippi. And I think you had mentioned something about Du Bois and his efforts.
Yes, they. In spite of you know, Booker Washington's philosophy was that in order for the Negro to be in the mainstream of life of the American life was to teach him to work with his hands. It's no accident that they taught uh, bricklaying and plastering and wallpapering and such as that. And whereas Du Bois thought that they should have the same type of education that the white person had. He fought diligently that that the Negroes study Greek and Latin, what have you, and I'm not so sure that I may be considered old time. And so what? Uh, People do not use Latin nearly as much as they do rules and saws and hammers and bricklaying. What do you the line and the trowel?
Right.
Whatever
Mhm.
whatever they use. It's all right for persons to study Latin that plan to go into medicine, but you know how much we need black
Mhm.
doctors and black lawyers
I
and like
think
that.
Barbara was indicating that. Well, how did you say you studied law?
Well, it's offered in the public schools of Wichita. And since I want to go into law, it's necessary that you take it because so many of the terms that come from that you use in law are kind of founded from, the Latin meanings. So, and it widens your vocabulary also. You're able to understand more words and things like that.
I can understand that, but the
I would
point
have
is
no-
that the average person,
Doesn't-
black particular, has no need for that.
No, and in Booker
language.
Washington's day, there were few lawyers. I can count them all in the state of Mississippi on the fingers of one hand. And Mississippi was at that time filled, you either taught school or was a minister. If you were a minister, you didn't go to any of the theologists where you needed Greek. You thus saith the Lord was
that
what,
was it.
and that was
Mhm.
it.
Mhm.
And the lawyers were just rare. They read law under
Mhm.
some of these lawyers who was there. That not only the black folks, but that was true generally all over
Mhm.
Mississippi.
Right. I think the first black lawyer in the state is still living. Is that right? Is that Attorney Jack Young? And he was sort of self-taught. No,
they
that's
were
not
lawyers long before him.
Oh, I see.
Burns was a lawyer up at Macon, Mississippi, one of the earliest. I'm sorry, I do not have that at my fingertips,
that's really
I,
not what we're supposed to be talking about.
Even at that, there, I'm accusing you. Now, here you saying Jack Young was the first attorney.
I don't know.
I'm
I
accusing
just
you
heard
like
you
I am
say that.
these other youngsters who nothing happened until Martin Luther King.
Well, that's fine. I'm guilty of it
Yeah,
then.
no, because they were lawyers long before Jack Young was born.
I'm sure there were
Mhm.
black lawyers that had to
Yes.
Mhm.
It might interest you to, well, it does, since you said that's what we were thinking about.
Mhm.
But did you know Jack Young and Onette Johnson were students and members of the same class at Howard, and their sons, they roomed together, and their sons roomed together at Howard, and were members of the same class.
Oh, that is interesting.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yes, ma'am.
But I cannot say too much about Booker T. Washington and his philosophy for his day. Certainly things have changed because it's not near as essential to learn how to plow today. But then there are other
food.
things you need. Oh yes,
Growing of the food is still essential.
and
Updating.
the second Mrs. Booker T. Washington was a Mississippi girl.
Now that's
It was she who organized the Mississippi State Federation of Colored Women's Clubs. The first meeting was held in Bethel AME Church in Vicksburg, Mississippi, but the organizational meeting was held at Pearl Street AME Church in Jackson, Mississippi. And the second Mrs. Booker T. Washington was a strong woman. She was in the class with when I say class, with Mrs. Grace Jones and Mrs. Bertha LaBranch Johnson.
Mhm.
They had
in the same time
Mhm.
working for the uplift of black women at that time. Yes, ma'am.
they were caught in this net there was no such when this man he was from the great state of Missouri,
Mhm.
that there was no such thing as a Negro lady.
Mm.
And this rumple these persons.
I'm sure. that
Yes.
it did. Right.
Yeah, because today we know that a woman is superior to a lady,
Mhm.
but at that time, you see, it was thought that a lady imbued all the
Mhm.
facets of culture and what have you.
Now, are you saying or suggesting that perhaps this is something that Mrs. Jones had to deal with to her relationship with Dr. Jones and persons at Piney Woods?
Meaning,
That perhaps Dr. Jones did not have the respect, and I shouldn't say that, let's say certain black men, leaders, perhaps did not have the respect that women felt that they should have had.
no, that was
you're
never
not-
true of Negro men anywhere.
Uh-huh.
No. This was said by a white newspaper editor.
Mhm.
This was thrown out to all of the Negro women throughout America. That there was, it was started because of another Mississippi woman who was not an educator in its truest sense, and yet she was, Ida B. Wells.
Right. Mhm.
It was said about her because of her interest in this
The
lynching, don't you see?
Yes.
And then but these other women just became enraged for a man to say that was the indictment against all Negro women, you see, that there was no such thing as a Negro lady, and why refer to one that. So she pitched in. So that is the thing that these women had to. It was not until Mrs. J.E. Johnson is responsible for this that the white women recognized us as club women. They kind of looked upon us as.
Yeah, I think that was sort of a national movement because I do remember that, many of our sororities got started during this period of time. What I'm
No,
talking about
later,
is
much later. Oh, much later, much later, much later.
14.
Oh, yes. But you see, the Federation came
But
into
I'm
being
saying
in
the
19.
yes, ma'am. The Federation comes first.
Yes.
But I'm sorry. I
Because
was thinking
because
of the
you remember
first 20
Federation
years of the
is
century.
the sorority for college women.
Right. Now the Federation
Is for women.
just women. Right.
Yes.
That is a significant difference.
It makes a very our motto is lifting as we climb. A woman keeps herself out of the Federation. You keep me out of the sororities, but you keep yourself out of the Federation.
The Federation.
Because if you cannot meet, if you think there are certain standards that you do not meet, well, of course you just don't learn.
Yeah.
We have the tag now of being old women with a lot of money and don't know what to do with it. But in practically every state I do not mean personal money, I mean the
Yes,
clubs
ma'am,
money.
the clubs money.
But in practically every state of the Union, particularly in the South, the Federation is responsible for the delinquent home. You can just go from.
It just became a national objective. At that
particularly
time.
in the South.
Well, I think more young women, as we understand our history
Mm-hmm.
and what we're about as people, will appreciate the work of the
the
Federation.
Federation.
Will
Yes.
become part, associated with the Federation. But we have, I think, gone through a sort of crucial period of not knowing our history. I understand from talking to a number of
yes.
people that there was a time when you taught black history, Negro history, or whatever you called it. And some seemed like in the 50s, early 50s, the late 40s,
Every
people
day-
began to stop teaching black history. So you have people coming along without it who have no idea.
I never
so we
taught
think
it.
we think everything is new. You see?
That's true. But honey,
That's a sad thing.
of course I could only touch certain, but I never told a day in my life that there was not somewhere that I could mention the fact that a Negro was there.
Yeah, well, that's good. But you see, my high school education is totally devoid of it. And most other people my age cannot say
Yes.
that the public school offered that to them.
Well,
unless they were in
the
a
public
unique
schools didn't
situation.
offer it. The public schools
And
didn't
had
offer
black
it. Probably,
teachers.
maybe one or two we used to. I believe Merle Epps came out with the first book from the university from Tennessee A&I. But long before that, you had books that you just somehow managed. I don't know.
To find the books.
Yes.
They were.
And then
there were.
during the Negro Renaissance, you remember that?
Right.
Do not remember
Yeah, I
that
do.
period.
I
but
don't
you-
remember, but I know
but
about the
But
period.
you know about the period.
Yes, ma'am.
Who died? Botemps
Yes.
was the last one of the members of the Renaissance. But that had more to do with the awakening the Negro to his place in history during this Renaissance. It was then that we had our first was this famous scholar before the Woodrow Wilson
Dubois?
no I don't mean that. What's this? Alan Locke was our first. What was before the Fulbright? Rhodes,
Yes.
the first Rhodes scholar.
Oh, I see what you're talking about.
And it was and he was one of the persons who's responsible for this.
Getting that started.
Yes.
Ma'am. I guess we'll get back to these through
To
schools.
yeah.
This is very relevant, I think, to sort of put the development of these institutions into some sort of setting, to say some of the other historical facts that were, things that were happening during the same period of time, because I sort of feel that seeing it in a historical perspective is going to make these institutions much more meaningful to us and our history. Now, I don't know that we've covered why you came to Prentice. Did you tell us about that?
I retired from
Oh.
Alcorn A&M College.
Did you attended Prentice as a student?
Yes,
You
but,
said, oh, that was just a brief period of time.
oh, yeah,
wasn't
very
it?
brief,
Right,
very
okay,
brief.
okay,
For
I
instance, that
understand.
was in the good old days when you taught 4 months out of 12.
Mhm,
And in the spring, they would have a spring session here.
mhm,
And you would come here before you went to Jackson State, Alcorn, or where have you,
mhm.
to the summer school. But you
Oh.
could pick up 2 or 3 hours here.
And then go back. I
then-
see. I see.
that's
Understand
right.
it. So,
But Mrs. Johnson meant so much to me, in the Federation and in just as a woman.
mhm,
One of her pet phrases to me was always, "Guy, you can do it."
mhm.
And if Miss Johnson said you could, well,
You could do it.
you could do it.
That magic word, faith, confidence
Yes.
in you, and all.
And when they heard that I was retiring, they asked me to come. I did not give them any answer. I wanted to write, that's the ambition of all most historians.
Mhm.
But anyway, a person left them, and I had to. They asked me to come,
Mhm.
so I stayed home exactly 1 month
Mhm.
from the time I left Alcorn until I came to Prentice, and I'm enjoying it immensely.
That's very good. I'm sure you're making a great contribution
Well, we would hope.
to both institutions. Now, what about the reputation of these two schools, Piney Woods and
The
Prentice?
let us truthfully say, I do not. That's a difficult question for me to answer because it's one man's opinion.
Yes, ma'am. Well, could you just give us your opinion?
My opinion is that they are beyond reproach. I'm not sure that Piney Woods is accredited, but I know Prentice is not. But we're knocking on the door, and we think we're ready to enter the door. But they
That is your junior college that you have here now. It's no longer high school, but a junior college.
They both schools serve a purpose that no other school has served. I'm not so sure. I cannot say that we do not need them now. We certainly do not need them as bad as we did in 1907 and 1908 and like
Right.
that. But I think they are endowed so that they will always live, and they will always. Piney Woods, in particular, is one of the best kept campuses that I have ever.
That's right.
And I was just, as one grows older, he likes to boast. So I was saying, I visited, with the exception of about 5, every state in the union, which means that I've seen a lot of schools.
Mhm.
But for its size, there's nothing, no other school that's superior to it.
Mhm.
And what do we say? A school is known by its products, or anything is known by its products.
Mhm.
And most of the people who finish from these schools, most of them, can hold their own with the graduates of any school. Oh, you could write another story on the graduates of these institutions.
Right.
How many of them have gone on to, we were so long obtaining the terminal degree until we think that, and it is a measure of academic success to be true, to be sure. And it is also a mark of distinction, and both of the schools have produced outstanding. So in my book, they are beyond reproach. Prentice is not as well kept as Piney Wood, but it serves the same purpose, and I suspect to a larger degree it serves more Mississippi people than Piney Wood. In fact, I would put my neck on that.
Yes, ma'am. What's the enrollment here, Prentice? Do you know?
We have a scant 300,
Mhm.
a scant 300, but with very few exceptions, they are Mississippians.
Wow.
And with very few exceptions, they come from this section of Mississippi. It's true, we might have a smattering of this young man that just was here. It's from the Gulf Coast. He finished in May. We have a few kids from the Delta. But basically, the kids are from this about 5, 6 county area in southeast Mississippi. And this was at that time, and I suspect still is, um, poverty stricken. Because I laugh and tell the people I was poverty stricken and didn't know it.
People recognize it today.
You see, when I grew up, honey, but I was so happy. It didn't dawn upon me that I was living below the poverty level. So, but that was basically true with Prentice and Piney Woods. And both the schools, you see, Jackson College was there near Piney Woods, but it didn't begin to touch the people. And then Piney Woods was just what its name implies, strictly in the Piney Woods, and people were just back. That's all. The people at Prentice were backward, and for that matter, a lot of us still back. But then we not as far back
as you were then, but
That's
perhaps
right.
you're backward and very happy.
Oh yes.
I mean, if you want to stay backward to what,
Yes.
know,
That's
and
very
that type of thing.
Oh yes. The schools are beyond reproach. Oh
So what you're saying is that there is a need for the continued existence of these
schools
institutions.
like this. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. No matter how much money a kid has, who comes from a certain community, that I will call Dexter. Dexter is a white community, but Negroes live there, and the Negroes who live there are the most backward in my county. Well, no matter how much money he had, he would need to come by Prentice, Piney Wood, Utica somewhere before he rushed up to Yale.
Yes, ma'am. That's right.
Yes, that's right. He was just so many things he can just pick up if he's just not even being alert. just pick it up. But
Now, what about the traditions of these two schools?
if I can separate tradition from heritage, they're both great. In the early days, Tuskegee was where the Prentice kids usually thought in terms of where they rushed off. And just because in that day, early days, one just didn't think in terms of high schools, And eventually, when he went to, when he finished here, when they finally put the college department at Tuskegee, they went to Tuskegee, they went to Alcorn. And one of the jokes, I think I'm correct in this, that Piney Woods was the first black school to have business in its curriculum.
That's interesting.
Yes, yes. The black boys and girls at Piney Woods used the typewriter before any others. Yes.
Yes, ma'am. That's important. Yeah.
Yes, it's important because, and that thing you didn't ask me about. I'm not.
Go right
I'm
ahead.
probably not supposed to talk
No,
about
ma'am,
this
you
school,
go right ahead.
but it has meant so much to me in many ways. The old line Alconite. When in the Alcorn was the, as you know, the oldest land grant college for Negroes, and the old line Alconite went to Alcorn. You were either vocational educational teacher, home economics teacher. You went into medicine. In rare cases, you studied law. And in very late, President Bell was elected, and he put business into the curriculum. And these people howled to high heaven. The school was not set up for business. Oh, they just thought that, they were just going off. And today, it has the highest enrollment of any of the schools in the college.
Well, it's very important today.
Oh,
This is for
we
us.
couldn't, and there should be even more. We should have a chair in economics and
Right,
or
of
investments, or real estate. There's just we just live different from what we did, and certainly they need business in every curriculum.
Yes, ma'am. And plus, the higher educational institutions have a different fight today
Oh
than
yes,
what we used to have.
yes, because you knew then. All of my life, I taught black children. I taught in black schools, But that will not be true with the kids who leave Prentice.
Today.
The few kids who get teaching jobs will teach anybody, don't you know? And not only, whatever they do, the competition will be greater. And for instance, we have white people on this faculty. I know in most, as you would know, at Jackson State, Alcorn, Rust College, they have so many Orientals. Rust got its accreditation off of the doctors from Cuba.
Yeah, I'm sure that's
I know it's the truth, honey. They just filled them. They had PhDs.
That's what they needed. That's what they had them. PhD.
That's right. So they got, and
They
so our boys and girls will have to compete with people from everywhere in the world. So they need. That's why I'm telling you, they need
They
it.
need everything else that everybody else has. Plus, the black educational institution today can no longer just teach for black people. We've got to, the institution itself has got to compete with the other institutions.
Very
Not only
true.
for our black students, but for white students. And,
Very true. And I
quality education, I think, should be the objective rather than colors of skin.
Yes, I tell the kids daily. Now, you have the same books at Prentice Institute that they have at Yale, at Harvard. The same writing. Now, it's you interpret it your way, but the words are there. So you just, what you need to do is to learn to read, learn to think. That's very difficult for Negroes to do. Maybe I shouldn't say that in a taped interview, but the average Negro does not think. He reads.
Right. That's right. You're very correct in saying that, and we cannot replace wisdom, and experience for any other types of value judgments that people might place on what you have to say. So that these types of traditions are extremely important. Now we've said a lot of things, and I'll just ask this last broad type of question here to make sure that we've covered this topic, and that is the relationship that these two institutions, or the founders, Johnson and Jones, have had with other educational institutions. I'm sure we've probably mentioned some of those along the way, but if we
Well,
could
you must
summarize
know they have had interrelation with each other. And if I'm any judge, they have had interrelations with the other schools. Because anywhere within the state of Mississippi, if you leave Piney Woods or Prentice, Utica for that, Utica is, in my little book, was founded, 'tis true, as a private school. But for a long time, it has really been a state school, don't you
since
see?
1954, somewhere over there it has now.
But, which means that its tradition is kind of different from these. But these are still traditionally black schools, supported in the main by black people. That is certainly, it is true for all, because here we do not have anything but black students. I understand we're going to have an Indian in September.
So y'all have become cosmopolitan or something?
Yeah, and our kids, the kids from both the schools, leave and go to any of the state schools without any further examination. There is, I think, a very healthy relationship among the other schools with these type of schools.
Yes, ma'am. So let's see if we could summarize some of the institutions that have grown out of these schools. I guess for Piney Woods, you've got the School of the Blind. Well, the School of the Blind for blacks. I don't know about the original School of the Blind, but I guess the first one for blacks was established at Piney Woods.
Very
and
true.
You said like personnel who've been associated with the school, like the wives of the two men started the.
Mr. Archer, one of the graduates of Piney Woods, and one was a blind student there. Used to lead a singing group. Works with the blind on the state level.
I believe he was there at the graduation. Commencement exercise.
Miss
who was
Archer.
Miss Archer. Oh, I don't
She
know.
lives
This was
in
a man that they had.
She
there.
lives in Canton.
Oh, I see. I don't know that person.
Yes. Well, number of I don't know that I would recall any school that sprang up from Prentice like Prentice sprang up from Tuskegee. But
You did mention a school earlier. I know they helped with Oakley, but there was another school that
Oak
you
Park.
mentioned. Oak Park.
Oak
right.
Park, yes.
And was it
Oak Park is a public school, but at that time there was no such thing as a high school for Negroes in Jones County. And the Johnsons, I think they stayed over there 6 years. I think I'm correct. I could probably find that out in a matter of minutes. Yes. So it was now. It came to my mind a woman that used to work at Utica. What was Miss Badgett's name?
Who started something, an institution or whatever?
I'm trying to get Miss Badgett and Utica together. I know she worked there, but I think she did not start a school.
Well, we can check that later. Now, Mrs. Dunham, are there any other types of comments that you would like to make relative to, let's say, the story of Piney Woods or Prentice Institute at this point?
I think the story has been told about Piney Woods in particular, to use this trite phrase, much more than what I could add.
Yes, ma'am.
But the schools really speak for themselves. They do not need anything to help them on because they have been a bulwark for black education in these parts. I do not know anything that I could add because you remember both schools trained athletes. You remember Piney Woods had this people who went into professional baseball, which means that's a great contribution because if the kids had not gone then, and it just been something that they have kind of pyramided. What about the athletes today? You see, what if they had to get ready to? But you see, they were ready from Piney Woods because Piney Woods had the first Negroes who really joined professional teams were from Piney Woods, and athletes have come from Prentice, not in as greater numbers as
From Piney Woods.
yes, but you've had more singers to come from Prentice
From
than from Piney Woods, because Prentice used to. Oh, that's one of the traditions that I'm doing my best to resurrect. You had singers at Prentice. They sang everything. They sang folk songs, they sang word songs, they spirituals, if there's any difference. I question whether there's a difference between a work song and a spiritual.
We dealt with that in history class once. I'm not quite sure what we came up with.
But it's very true. They have the same beat. You get the same feeling.
And one talks about God and the other one just talks about
it's
work.
Love. That's all. It's work. The blues, it talks about work. But anyway. And then they had this classical singing. Whatever type of singing you wanted, it was at Prentice.
Right.
And you recall certainly Piney Woods was more or less basically the spirituals. I think we call them gospel songs now.
Spirituals is what they still call them at Piney Woods, though. They emphasize the difference between the gospel and the spiritual. Although I noticed that the last time I was there, they did sing what we would classify as gospel music. Also.
They have to because these young people demand it. Yes, and it's part of the day. You hear it on the television and all of that, so it's a part of the day.
Well, if you have no other summarizing comments, Mrs. Dunham, we'll just.
Well, I can't. I guess when you're gone, I think of a million things. But basically, right now, I can think of nothing that I have not said. As I told you in the beginning, I did not know too much about Piney Woods. But Prentice is just a bulwark. We'll always need it. We'll always need Piney Woods. There are certain people that should always attend schools of this time. So they have not, by any stretch of your imagination, lost their usefulness.
Right.
People will not crowd to them as in the old days you had a waiting list.
But there still is a need. Well, I want to thank you very much, Mrs. Dunham, for talking with us today.
Come back to see us. Yeah.
Okay.